Dr. Jazz. Dr. Jazz.
Yeah, in Slovenia already like 3 times. Twice with, no, 4 times actually I saw you. Yeah, twice with Medeski, Martin Wood, and once with Wicked Knee. And then the first time, the first time with Sco on the Jazz Festival in 2006, I think that was. So, yeah, must have been.
Yeah. Leon is nice. It's very nice. City.
Yeah, you seem to play there a lot, which is great. I like that, so that people are supportive of the music. But first, I just want to ask you, start with this 2 new. I mean, I've been following your music for a long time, ever since this baby came out. Like, I was like, okay, who are these guys? And then I started buying all these records, and I didn't know until the other day when you wrote that you actually did the cover art and everything. I will ask you about that. I had no idea. But I wanted to ask you about these 2 latest albums, Guilty and Meshes, this orchestra also. And Guilty is amazing, man. I just listened to it today, and it's like a I don't know, soundtrack to a movie that doesn't exist yet. And I just wanted to ask you, how did you come up to the idea? Was this like a Corona kind of a type project, or did you already started doing this before? Or?
No, I already started doing it. It was last year.
Oh, all right. Okay.
I would say last year in the summer of 2019, I was starting to collect, record bass lines that I came up with on my loop pedal, and then I would sometimes play beats, and it was just little by little I was collecting all of these, I call them seeds, to grow. So to
snippets,
help. Yeah. So, and then I kind of felt like there was a potential record I could do. And then by the fall of 2019, I had, after a friend, a student fan came to visit me, Rob, the co-producer. He lives in Salt Lake City, Utah now, but he's originally from upstate New York. So he's coming to visit his family. And then we hung out in my tea house, my Japanese tea house.
Yeah.
And maybe I'll take you there in a minute later.
I heard the other day the sound, the sound of the rain there, man. That's so soothing. It's just like
yeah. So he asked me if I would give him a chance to work on something, because I was posting a lot of things on Instagram. When I get excited about a little thing that happens, creatively, I like to post it. A lot of people. Not a lot of people. Some people, I think, are very careful about what they post, and they're they don't want to post anything until it's finished. Or for me, it's like I'm more excited at the beginning to share it. So I end up having all these things, and then so he's been watching and getting excited, and so he asked me to give him a chance at maybe mixing something. And I said, well, I could use someone to help me get past this stage of just And he did. He sent back some really nice stuff, and that just turned into a collaborative project where I would send him, the parts, and then he would send me something back. If I liked it, then we would work on it, and that turned into the record. By the end of the year last year, I knew that there was a record coming, and I had a goal to have it out in the spring.
Yeah.
And that's how, and it all came from me playing bass. From me just.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you, how was that? Did you play bass already before, or?
No, I've never played bass in a band or anything like that. I wouldn't be able to hold it together, in that capacity. It's more of a composing tool. It's more coming up with a riff, and then composing. So I got a bass because I was working on some film scores over the past, I don't know how many years it's been now, probably over 8 years or more, that I've been starting to score and write music for films. And as I keep doing it, I'm always looking for a way to trick myself into creating a melody or finding something that I wouldn't normally find on a piano. Or so by getting a bass, like it was just the best thing I ever did. I'm so happy, you know, and I didn't know that I, you know, would be able to. I never saw myself as someone who could write bass lines as good as, you know, some of my friends like Chris Wood.
Yeah.
And I think some of that rubbed off. It's just, it comes
They're
out.
really bass-like.
I don't have the technique
but
they have, or the you know, the learning, you know, scales. I can't play a scale. I mean, I could figure it out, but like, why? I just looking for notes, and I'm looking for riffs, and then I record counter lines, and then those counter lines create this thing, and I play drum. And I realized that was also something that I've always wanted to do since I was very young, playing the drums. I always wanted to make bass lines when I was very young.
Cool.
I bought this Roland Bassman. It was a Roland, like, you know, those Roland drum machines. You know? And then they had a Bassman. I think it was called Bassman, but it was I bought it. I had it for about a day. I left it in my car, and someone broke the window of my car and stole it in New York City. And so that was heartbreaking. So then now here I am, like, writing bass, you know, coming up with bass lines, putting them in the loop pedal in general, and then playing with it and having like this relationship with myself. And that's really what this Guilty is about. It's just a moody record. It's a groove record, you know, which hasn't been the direction I've taken as a solo artist. I've taken more of a direction of, like, besides the Illy Be Eats series, the drum beat series, it's been really more experimental chamber music and stuff. So Guilty is like, feels really good. Like, that felt really good to make that.
You had fun doing it, or
a lot of fun. I'm working on another one. Yeah, I love it.
Super. Yeah, it's so much fun that we can do these things at home now. I also have a home studio, you know. It's like during this lockdown, I just like started doing stuff, you know, and I love tweaking the sounds and then listening. It's beautiful. So, I mean, and it's also yours is so cool because for me it's almost sounds like songs in a sense of like indie rock. You know, I hear sometimes even vocals being added, and you would have like, you know, almost like an indie pop, indie rock band going on, like, and especially
that's what I do.
Oh yeah, okay. But how did you then invite like Marc Ribot? He added so much to those songs. When he starts playing that tremolo on the third or second song, the tremolo guitar, man, it's just like, it's so simple, but it's there, man. It's like,
he's the best. Like, Marc is the best. He's a friend, and we've worked together, and every once in a while I'll call him up and ask him to do something, and we do it. And he's just, you know, did, you know, originally we agreed that he would play on 3 things, and I sent him 5, and he played on all 5, and he played like a lot of tracks. So I had to go through all these and, you know, find the stuff. Was hard because there's so many good things he did. And but he's amazing. He made the record, like, you know, he just made it 50 times better with his sound, his voice on the guitar. As far as the indie stuff goes, I realized that, like, when you play a fretted instrument, you know, like the bass, for instance, or guitar, there's certain patterns that I'm drawn to. You know, I'm drawn to certain kind of things that sound like, you know, like indie rock and stuff, like, you know. And some people say, "Oh man, this band Tortoise."
Sure.
And I love that. I am like a minimalist composer. I would say I'm definitely in that, from that kind of, like, I respond to that stuff. That's kind of, and so that's what comes out, and I love it. You know, when I first played drums in, you know, 1975, I was, you know, I was playing rock. I was playing rock music, and like, that's how I learned to play the drums. That's my foundation. So, you know, all of this that I'm doing now is part of who I am. It's not like I'm switching from this jazz. The jazz thing came later, like jazz, and then I'm not even considering myself a jazz drummer. I'm just a musician, you know. I make music. It doesn't matter the style. But yeah, this is really cool. I really like this direction, and I really do like a little bit more of the going into a song form direction. Not too much, too fancy. Keep it simple, punk rock garage style.
Yeah.
It's all about mood. It's all about, you know, feeling that you get from sound. And I don't even think about chords or melodies, but they are in there here and there. And adding a vocalist is something I want to do next, you know. I just met and worked with this incredible contra-tenor opera singer, Chinese opera singer, but Western singer. And he is, we worked together recently, and I think that's going to be my next band. It's going to be, I haven't even told him yet, but I know he's going to be into it. It's going to be, it's going to be this kind of stuff, and also some experimental, you know, things, some kind of like non-groove stuff. But I think that's going to be the next thing. Have this contra-tenor, voice, drum, bass, guitar, you know, maybe a trio.
Would you see this music like kind of also going on road after a while, like with musicians actually? Yeah. Oh, wow.
I want to take Guilty on the road. I wanted to do that. And it'll just be, you know, I think the Guilty music and the next record, even if it's with a singer and it's this direction with opera singer, it's going to be a similar thing. It's going to be groove based, and there will be, you know, guitar for sure, bass, drums, and then if we have a voice, it's going to be used in a way that'll be quite different than. I'm really excited about it. I think I'm not a conceptual. I don't like concepts.
Yeah.
But obviously, this record is a specific thing, but it allows for me to kind of still be. I could go into other directions, but like
it's fairly open. Yeah.
Yeah. The concept though is that a lot of it is, you know, groove stuff, and we can get expansive, and then adding a vocalist like an opera singer.
Yeah, that's
with a female sounding voice. A male with this is like, I think is going to be really interesting. So you're the first to hear about this.
Ah, wow. Woohoo.
Yeah, we had exclusive material here.
No, it's cool. But you would play drums live, right? Or
I would play drums, but I may switch off. I may switch off on bass. And have, you know, a guitarist.
Yeah.
Or the bass player who also.
That you can change.
Yeah, I want to find a bass player that plays a guitarist, bass player that also can play drums.
Ah, okay.
And so that I can switch off with her. Hopefully, it's a her. Yeah.
Yeah, that's always nice. Yeah.
More females in my life. I'm telling you, the music is getting so much better the more I work with female musicians.
Really. Wow! Really?
Yeah.
But you know, but like you said, like these songs are. Yeah, I can totally see them live, but just like with maybe even some video background, you know. I don't know. I see this like as a soundtrack. This entire Guilty.
Yeah, that's what
I don't know. It's this vibes.
Yeah, I know.
True detective kind of vibe, almost, you know, like or something like that. I know.
Yeah, I'm hoping that some people in the film world will want to use this music, of course, because that also helps me to pay the bills. But no one's really jumped on it yet. I'm kind of surprised, but at the same time, you know, we'll see what happens, you know.
Yeah, this lockdown things and all that probably doesn't help also in this period, I guess. So.
I don't know. I don't know.
Depends. Yeah, it will.
I'm going to keep doing it because I'm very happy with how the record turned out.
Yeah.
And I haven't made a record like this in my life, like myself, my own record, my own under my name. So it feels really good. It also feels like it's part of the thing that I haven't done yet, where it's like, it sounds more like a complete whole.
Mm-hmm.
The whole record is a journey. It's like a Medeski Martin Wood record.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to copy that or be in that at all. This is really a natural process. So. Mm-hmm. and I feel like it's part of who I am that I haven't explored yet and enough.
This area. Yeah. No, it's beautiful. I mean, I'm so surprised, because, I think the majority of people know you like this amazing drummer, I guess, also as a composer, but you're so wide, like musically, I listened to all of your records now and stuff like that the past few weeks, and it's just how much variety you have. It's amazing. I really love that you're not like pigeonholed into this, like, okay, I'm a jazz drummer and that's what I do, and I think you're, like you said, an artist and a creator, and that's beautiful. And speaking of this variety, I just wanted to ask you about this Meshes project, the number one, which came out in January with this improvised orchestra, and you have such amazing players there, like some of my favorite musicians in that band. And I just wanted to ask you, like, I mean, improvisation has been part of your playing for such a long time, and who you are. But like, what was the concept behind this improvised orchestra, and how did you kind of get the idea to do this and to get these musicians together, particularly?
Yeah, well, when I started putting improvising groups together, like in the 90s, late 90s, 2000s, really, like I would kind of curate bands to just improvise, whether it was at Tonic or, mostly I remember doing a bunch of things at Tonic. And I would get people together like Shelley Hirsch and Ned Rothenberg, and it was they would call me to be with them, and so I'd have this kind of downtown family where we would be really just improvising with each other in front of an audience. And then I in the past 5 years, I've been involved with the Creative Music Studio, which is,
I saw it,
organization that's been around since the 70s.
Yeah.
And that a lot of people who came out of that were also exploring the improvising orchestra concept and different ways to make music, like Anthony Braxton and particularly Carl Berger, who started the studio, is one of these people that conducts an improvising group. And so working with Carl, watching him gave me more confidence. I've also been a fan of Lawrence Butch Morris.
I wanted to ask you that,
but like I never worked with him. He asked me, like if I wanted to be in his, band where he conducts, but I was too busy at the time. I was with S. Martin Wood and I was with John Lurie, National Orchestra, Lounge Lizards. I was so busy, and then so I was inspired by that, and then I basically started to experiment with that at the Creative Music Studio, like working with a workshop group of master classes, and I did it even in the New School a little bit. I had some opportunities to work with in different universities, like where I would come as a guest, and I would have a master class, and then I would get to work with them. I started to experiment, and then by last year, the year before, whatever it was, like I finally felt really strongly that I wanted to work, with graphic scores and conducting. And I put that thing together. I've got a friend of mine from Japan who's the executive producer to work with me to fund it. And he collects my artwork and some of the scores that I make. So he wanted to help me make the records, both of these records actually. And so that was really what helped. Also having a record label myself, there's a little bit of money that comes back from selling these records, not a lot, but sometimes it can help fund the record. So that gave me the opportunity to experiment and get an orchestra together, 13 musicians, I think. And I just went in there one day, no rehearsal. I mean, I rehearsed and we recorded, like right away while they were setting up. I showed them my signals. And
you gave them the graphic scores, or it was just
I also gave the graphic scores.
Okay.
There are a couple of graphic scores, and I numbered them like different sections, and I counted and went through that way. And then the other pieces are certain, you know, I give them certain cues. I have all kinds of hand signals and intuitive cueing, and just and we did this in 3 hours. We recorded in 3 hours. And so that was, you know, that's really in a way, in the sense, a beginning for me of like making more music that way, and teaching, you know, like also teaching any musician from any style of music. So, but I was very lucky to do that record and to have the, you know, have the budget to make that.
No, it's a beautiful one.
Yeah, really good recording studio, and just very boom, boom, boom. We did it, you know.
Yeah, no, it's
with the help of Zorn too. John Zorn helped me find a couple of musicians I wanted. Bassoonist, there was a harp.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you, because it's quite bizarre. I mean, not traditional kind of this orchestra type of instruments. It's quite like interesting variety you got there. So that's what I wanted to ask you. Like, how did you gather these guys? Like,
yeah, in general, I knew I wanted like, you know, piano. Wanted, which is, you know, so I wanted string, brass, woodwinds, percussion. So the strings are harps, a violin, and cello.
Yeah.
Right. Then we have piano, and then we have 2 percussionists, and then we have French horn, trumpet, trombone, and then we have bassoon.
Yeah.
And we have reed players, 2 reed players that played clarinets, bass clarinets, and/or saxophones. Also, Ned Rothenberg also played.
Ned Rothenberg, yeah.
So I knew like someone like Ned Rothenberg. I knew, you know, he can play a lot of instruments. So having him is always great. He's an old friend. I love him. And then having someone like Anthony Coleman, who just plays piano, but like know how he's deeply open to
he's incredible,
experimental piano playing and reading graphic scores. And then there's someone like Dana Lynn, who's a violinist who also plays piano. And, you know, I've even used her playing bass, but like, so there was a violinist that could cross over. So, and then having Kenny Wallison and, you know,
Thomas,
Thomas, like having them like both play percussion at times. And so,
incredible,
well, I knew most of them, and some of them I didn't know at all. Like some of them I met on the session. You know, the horn player, the clarinetist from Ice, and you know, and Carol Emanuel on harp. Like I never met them. They just
really? Wow.
And they were through Zorn. You know, Zorn was like, "Oh, check them out." You know, he gave me some names and numbers, and
super.
Yeah,
no, beautiful stuff that you did. Like, but you mentioned your own label before. This one came out on your own label, and I wanted to ask you, like, I mean, you know, you've been like with some of the biggest labels, also like with Medeski and Martin and Wood, and now you have your own label, and that's even a better background.
Oh, it is? Okay.
No, well, you know, always when you have instruments.
Well, I have to plug in the phone, so
sure.
So it's all working out, I guess.
Yeah.
Hold on.
Yeah, no worries.
Yeah, my label, and then the other labels you said that are.
No, I just wanted to ask you, like, you know, I've been doing records on my own as well for a couple of years, and it's just like, what do you see the advantages or pros and cons or advantages and disadvantages of having a label? And
oh, well, that's easy to answer.
I mean, like creatively, I guess, of course, it's fun. Like
the fuck I want.
Yeah.
No one tells me what to do. The only thing that dictates. Hold on a second.
Sure.
The only thing that it always comes down to having the budget, the money.
Yeah.
You know, so I have to like make sure that I have a budget because I do want to support the musicians.
Yeah.
And sometimes I have to ask them for a favor. But ultimately, besides that, it's my record label. I choose however I want to do it, whatever, there's no one telling me you can't do that. And that's what it's about. It's about total independence and an uncompromising artistic
that's good, right?
Vision.
But were the, like, labels, I mean, I don't know if you can talk about that, like, but like in the past, you were with Blue Note also, let's say, with like, did those labels actually interfere, like, artistically, what you should do or not, or?
No, but there were sometimes there were some vibes, the expectations that we felt like they want, that it always came down to they want to sell more records or appeal to the base, and that's when things get really disturbing for me. And other people, like if you're in a band like Medeski, Martin, Wood, there's always someone in the band that's more sensitive to that feels like they have to, make everybody happy. And I'm not, like, I'm sensitive to it, but not. I'm also very protective of the whole point of signing a band to your label is about the band's vision, not getting in their way. A good producer doesn't ever get in a band's way, So there were times when we had a little bit of those vibes, but they weren't. Blue Note was pretty cool with us. I can't really complain much about them, except that they did drop us as well. We did part ways at a certain point. Like, they did decide that, like, they couldn't pay us, the money that they said they would pay us on the next record, that they were cutting down. So it was our opportunity to say, it's time for us to be independent. And we never needed a label or anything, but being on Blue Note, of course, is a cool thing. And they also have a big influence on, the world market, right? They can reach places that we wouldn't be able to reach. But at the same time, they're also gaining an audience that they couldn't normally gain. A younger audience.
It's a
symbiotic,
two sides.
But we had a lot of trouble with Gramavision in the beginning.
Really?
Well, because they were a very small independent label, and they were run by this woman who had a husband who was a producer, and they basically told us, you're going to work with this guy. And we found out that it was the husband of the woman who was running the label, and it wasn't cool. Like, we didn't have a choice, and it was like we went along with it. But after this, by the second record, we told them we didn't work with that producer. I mean, he got the credit, but he didn't do anything. He just sat there and got paid. And then you start to think about, well, he's getting points on the record, and for doing what? It's just
Exactly.
So that was the political side of things we learned about. Then Rykodisc took them over. Rykodisc bought up all these indie labels. So Rykodisc had a little bit more. They were a bigger company but they didn't. They didn't get it. They didn't tell us what to do, really. But we still had to convince them, like things like going to Hawaii, for instance, and recording, there was like, we had to convince them that it was the right thing to do, and they were not really comfortable with it, but they went along with it. And it turned out to be the best thing that ever happened for us and for them. So it was like their trust in us taking the risk, which really wasn't a big risk for them, to be honest with you. They had plenty of money back then.
No, I just wanted to ask you, because it's nowadays more and more musicians, do it on their own. Like, I think almost half of the musicians have their own labels, like Dave Holland, or I don't know, Dave Douglas. Like, everyone has been doing it on their own, and I think nowadays it's even possible that with the internet and all the options where you can sell your music, it's makes it at least a little bit easier than, I guess, when it would be 30 years ago. That's for sure. I guess
it's the best. I think it's really this is a good era for independent musicians. You could distribute music digitally is like really taking a lot of the financial burden off of us.
Definitely.
Of course, selling physical LPs is an extra thing if you're lucky enough to have fans that like to buy vinyl are so devoted to you that they'll buy it no matter what, and even if they don't play it on their turntable. This is good. This is one thing about the internet and everything that's helping independent artists. And in some respects, though, we're losing maybe, the bigger record.
Yeah.
Companies they don't have enough money to spread around as they used to.
It's different.
To support musicians.
Yeah. Billy, I just wanted to go really back. I mean, how important was, you cooperated with him a lot. How important was Bob Moses for you? And especially, I wanted to ask you about, I'm really curious, you kind of started in the early 80s, right? In the New York scene. And how was it for you, back then, as a really young jazz percussionist, drummer, musician in that scene? How did you get involved into it?
It was an amazing time. I graduated high school in New Jersey in 81.
New Jersey, okay.
Yeah, well, I grew up in New York City, and when I was 12, in 1975, my parents moved to New Jersey, just across the river here. Yeah. And then when I graduated high school in 81, I was into, not just rock and jazz and it wasn't called hip hop then. It was R&B, DJ culture, dance music. I eventually got into Brazilian music, so it was in the early to mid 80s, I started taking a lot of lessons in New York City, and I met Bob Moses in a Brazilian samba class. So I was going through a lot of transformation as far as directions. I was almost like I am now, in the sense of being open to playing any kind of music and taking any kind of gig. I don't take any kind of gig anymore because I'm much wiser. I know I'm careful about that. I'm not but back then I was I'd do anything to do a gig. And I would learn on the gig too. So half of my education was just taking a gig and learning on the gig, or just playing with a fusion band, playing with a nightclub, playing, whatever. And then eventually it turned into this Brazilian music that I fell in love with and was learning. And that's where I met Bob Moses, and he was very much into Brazilian music at the time, and was starting to use that style in his writing, with big band stuff. Yeah. So that was after When Elephants Dream of Music, that record that he did on Ground Vision, which is one of the masterpieces.
Yeah, it's amazing.
I didn't know who he was. I had to ask people in the class who he was, because he was asking me to play, to rehearse with him, to workshop with him. And they were like, "Are you crazy? He's a legend, And I was like, I don't know anything about him." And they're like, "Oh man, you're lucky, So, and then I listened to, then I looked, and then I went to the record store. I found When Elephants Dream of Music. And it was just like, oh my God, this is so beautiful. Because what was beautiful about it for me was that it wasn't just traditional anything jazz. It was it sounded like orchestral music. It sounded like world music. And it sounded like jazz tradition all mixed in, and really. And then I remember seeing a quote from Gil Evans on the record. Gil Evans was talking about how important this music was, and
oh really? Oh wow.
And so, and then I started to realize that who's Gil Evans, and I was like, oh my God, Gil Evans is what a genius, arranger, composer. So I was really turned on to this incredible creative mentor. Really, he turned out to be a mentor. I didn't know it. I just was I'm still a kid, and I'm 20, and I'm just doing anything, and I'm hanging out with Bob Moses, and he's and I'm playing all this Brazilian percussion that I just learned, that I kind of was getting close to mastering all of the rhythms and the feel of it. Unusual for a white gringo like me to be able to get the groove of Brazilian music. So And he was very encouraging, and he was very generous with sharing all of his stories and all of his knowledge, and encouraging me, and also recognizing something in me that he thought was special. And that just was like, he was just building me up in a way, taking me under his wing as one of his percussionists, one of his band people. You know, like I became part of his band. Not only that, I became his sidekick, co-producer. Like he used me for every possible thing I could do, like recording stuff. Like I knew how to record. I had in my father's basement, my dad, all his recording gear, and we recorded a Drumming Birds record there. And
wow. I wanted to ask you about these two. I mean, you did visit with the Great Spirit, like in '84 with him, right? I just wanted to ask you, how was that for you? Because I mean, I have that record, and it's just you check out the names on there, and it's like, you know, it's who's Liebman, Sanborn, Frizzell, Jerome Harris, I don't know, Lincoln Goins. I think it's everyone, like, you know, Scofield already. And I wanted to ask you how. How was it for you, like, and back then recording that album, and how was actually the process of that being done with all those amazing musicians?
Well,
if you remember that one.
That's around the time that when I met him, he was like writing music because he had just gotten back from Brazil. He was hanging out with Hermeto Pascoal, touring South America, and like having these like, you know, visions of like how he wanted to make his next record. So when he came, and he had a record deal with Gramavision, so he had a budget and he knew he was going to make another record. So he wanted a lot of percussion. He had these wild, big visions of, you know, the music. So I was pretty much part of the beginning stages of like realizing that stuff. Wow. So I was, you know, we actually recorded something else before Visit with the Great Spirit. That's where I met Ciro Baptista, like, who ended up not recording on the next record, but like I met him, Jaco, like all these people were coming around. Jaco Pastorius, all this stuff.
Really? Oh wow.
Yeah. And so I was like, that process was like building, like with him recording, doing some test recording things, rehearsing with him, playing some live shows, and then getting in the studio to record that record was a huge deal, and also like a really big band. It was in the Vanguard studio, which is no longer around. Vanguard was like where you take an orchestra and you record an orchestra, like NBC orchestra or something, and that was like on 14th Street, I think, and everybody would show up. I mean, like you said, it's David Sanborn, Eddie Gomez.
Yeah, it's like everyone.
David Liebman, Bill Frisell, Delmar Brown, you know, Danny Gottlieb. It was just like one after the other of these, you know, like iconic, legendary people that were just reading these charts, and Moses was conducting them through it. And he had the drums set up on this platform in the middle of the room. Everybody was around him, and that was it was an incredible experience. I know I have some photos somewhere.
Really? That was amazing.
Session. Yeah, and that's also where I met David Baker, the recording engineer, who, you know, he became a good friend of mine, another mentor who recorded Medeski and Wood the first few records, and recorded quite a few things on my label. But yeah, so that process was amazing. I didn't know half of the people, and I got to know, you know, Dave Liebman and these Bill Frisell, and connected with Delmar Brown, all these people. I connected with them, you know, and worked with them a bit. And so that it was an incredible experience. It was like, I don't know how many days of recording. It was just, I was in heaven. I didn't know what. I was just, you know, this kid who was just going off on Brazilian percussion and having fun, and helping him manage, you know, the production notes and stuff.
Oh wow! So but Drumming Birds, which you mentioned before, the duo also happened in that era, or a little bit later, or how did that come about?
That happened after. It happened. Drumming Birds happened after, because then he got a an offer to tour Europe, and this East German promoter Uli Blobel put him on, and it was going to be me and another Brazilian percussionist and him, and we was going to be drumming birds. I ended up going with Bob Moses, but my Brazilian teacher, who was my partner with Moses, Manuel Monteiro, couldn't go because he didn't have his green card. So it ended up being 2 of 3. We would play with different drummers in different places.
Oh, wow.
One of them was Nene, the Brazilian drummer with Hermeto. We played with him in Frankfurt and in a couple other places. But we also played duo in Skopje. There's
in Macedonia?
A televised concert with just Bob Moses and me playing a whole concert in front of a huge audience in Skopje.
In the festival, probably, yeah.
I guess so, yeah.
Yeah. Is there footage from that still somewhere?
I don't know, man.
Oh, wow. That would be nice.
If you could find that one, that would be pretty fucking crazy.
Wow.
Because we were crazy. I was really crazy then. Like, you know, he was really just like pumping me up. So we were just, you know, having a good time. But anyway, so we did this tour, and it ended a little early, and it ended badly. Bob Moses was very homesick. He had a baby, his son, and he was very upset about Uli Blobel, the deal, which is Uli Blobel was famous for really bad deals and taking advantage of musicians. So when we went back, Bob Moses told me that we owed Uli Blobel a record by contract. We were supposed to record a record, and we were recording a record, and we just literally left. We just escaped the whole. He was, you know, Bob Moses made us kind of just revolt and leave, you know, refuse to record the record because the deal was so bad. It was taking advantage of him so much that he had to kind of refuse to record the record. But later he said, we got to make this record. And I'm like, well, I can do it. I can record it.
Yeah. Oh, beautiful.
8-track reel to reel in my dad's basement. And that's what we did.
That's the story behind that one. Wow, that's amazing, man.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah. Then we sent the master to Uli Blobel, and then he put it out on his label. And then eventually I took it back because legally it actually was my record because I had recorded it.
Yeah.
I found out that I could release it. Yeah.
Yeah. That's amazing, man. Like, but you kind of, so Bob was basically the trigger that you started doing lots of also duos. I mean, like with Calvin West and like that stuff, and with John Lurie, the trio.
Yeah.
Like Marc Juliana, I saw that footage the other day that you guys did, like I think beginning of this year or last year, and it's amazing. Like with drums, you kind of seem to be connected playing these duos. And through this, I wanted to ask you, like, how did you get connected with John Lurie and the Lounge Lizards? I saw some footage from Live in Berlin. There's like I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah.
That DVD. Yeah, it's amazing. You're like burning it there, like, and how did you get into that scene then?
Yeah, well, that was that band. So the Lounge Lizards has gone through a few different permutations,
phases,
members. So actually, Marc Ribot was in the Lounge Lizards before the one that I was in, and that was sort of like one of the classic. It's like Curtis Fowlkes and all these guys from the Jazz Passengers, and so so John was he had a new band. A couple of my friends were in the band. I didn't really know anything about the Lounge Lizards. I was completely clueless as usual. And they were looking for to replace the percussionist. The percussionist wasn't working out, and they had rehearsed for 2 weeks, and they were about to go on tour, literally like a few days before they were going to go on tour with rehearsing this music for 3 weeks. Yeah. John Lurie realized that he needed new percussionists because this guy was not working, and so a couple of the musicians mentioned me that I could be possibly the one to replace the percussionist. So, and then I just got a call from John Lurie. A friend of mine told me he's going to call me, and I talked to John, and John was like, asked me a few things and asked me if I played conga drums, and I was like, I don't really play conga drums with my hands.
Yeah.
I play with sticks. And he's like, oh no, I didn't say that. I said, I'm not really a hand drummer. And I'm like a stick drum. I'm a stick percussionist, like I play timbales, and he's like, well, just play congos with sticks. And then that's how I developed that, playing the congos with these big wooden mallets, which is really inspired from the Burundi drummers that I saw in Amsterdam when I was there on a festival. And then I joined, and the first minute that we played was like instant. Everybody in the room felt it. They knew this was like my connection with Calvin was like really deep,
incredible,
and it was a beautiful beginning of a whole new era. It changed my life, and from that, being in the Lounge Lizards, we had some moments where we would open up the show with just me, John, and Calvin, and then everybody else would come out.
Yeah.
And then John loved it so much that he formed this trio, the John
Man with Sticks, right?
Out of that.
Yeah.
And that was a really, for at least a year we were touring everywhere, making a couple of records, and that to me was a very special trio.
Yeah, it sounds very tight also, like, especially you and Calvin, like, like in that Berlin also, like, that's incredible how you guys play it. It's just, but I just wanted then to ask you one more question, one more thing about how did you, with Medeski and Martin and Wood, how did you meet with Sco? Like, how was the story behind there?
That's an interesting story. So Scofield, I had met Scofield because of Bob Moses, but like I never played with him. Except for on the recording.
Yeah.
So, Scofield called us out of the blue. In other words, he just called us, Medeski, Martin, Wood, like we had a phone number that our fans could. He called us, left a message. Hey, I'm John Scofield. I really like you guys. I'd love to play with you. And he found out about us through his daughter, who had these tapes of some concert. Our shows, like kind of like the Grateful Dead kind of.
Yeah, kind of like bootlegs.
Tape culture. Yeah. So those tapes were flying around. His daughter played him some of that stuff, and he loved it. And it was really his
Oh, Billy, I think I lost you. Maybe the connection is not so good here.
Yeah, sorry. Where did it get cut off?
Like that, John's daughter.
Jeannie played him, gave him a tape or two of us live, and he called us up and just said he wanted to work with us, maybe make a record, and that was a go-go.
So, but then you just met for the record, and he just brought these tunes, and you just started jamming, or?
Yeah, we talked. We had sort of a little bit of a conversation on the phone about like what kind of record, and he was basically like, you guys bring in some music, I'll bring in some music, we'll collaborate. And at the time we were like, no, you just bring the music in, we're just gonna play your music. Like we didn't want to have to deal with the responsibility of writing music with him in mind. So basically it made it a lot easier. And I think it made for a better record because it was just his tunes and us basically playing the tunes the way we want to play them. Yeah. It wasn't like we were sidemen where he tells us how to play. Not that he does that with really anybody. He's great. He's great with musicians.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah.
He hires you for who you are. So he knew that just having a band like this that already has such a great sound was going to work. But basically, our sound is so strong, right, that we're just going to arrange his music just instantly,
Yeah.
And that's why I think the record is so powerful, is because it's his music, but our arrangements. And we rehearsed for a day or two. We went in the studio for a day or two, and that was that.
Yeah, it's amazing. This really blew my mind the first time I heard it. I was just like, damn, man.
It's made quite an impact. Yeah.
Yeah. But what about this new one? I saw that you did this pandemic thing, in the Woodstock studios. Is that something new brewing, or it's just like that was just a jam, or?
That was just a one-off. We did that. I mean, there is a recording of it. It was in the Woodstock session at the Applehead recording.
Yeah.
We recorded stuff there before. So with Nels Klein, we did that Woodstock Sessions. It's it was just a one-off. It was something to do during the pandemic to kind of do. It was an experiment. Part of it, I think, was a request from our friends that run the studio, and just our need to play some music and kind of help people get through this period. And it was a nice little chance to play together.
Yeah, definitely. I just wanted to ask you musically one other question, which is like playing solo drums. Like, how does this start? I mean, okay, it's a small difference between duo and solo. It's only one person less if you look at it like that. But I started doing some solo gigs before the pandemic, and it's kind of scary to stand alone on a stage with the guitar. And I just wanted to ask you, how do you approach this different animal, which is playing solo, being alone on stage? How do you approach solo gigs, let's say?
Yeah, it can be really challenging and scary in a sense, because it's all you have nothing to lean on. But then on the other sense, it's very freeing of you being able to express yourself freely. And it takes practice, you have to, if you don't ever do it, then you're never going to do it. It's like you have to book a gig or work on that. Also, you can work on it alone at home or in your studio, just performing for yourself, for 10 minutes, half an hour, developing different ideas. My approach originally was that I wanted to improvise my way through it. I didn't want to play written out stuff. I don't necessarily mean written out on paper, but not like I had it all figured out. I'm just going to play these tunes or these compositions. So they were more like these sketches of ideas. Some of them, I had recorded on Black Elk Speaks, this solo record that I put out. So there's some of those things were there were some basic ideas from that I would jump off and play. So what I did was I would write down on index cards. I would write things down mallets. That's it. And then other times I might have a specific thing, from the record that maybe called, Six Grandfathers, or something that was a title of a solo piece that was improvised. And I would basically play an impression of it. So each time I did it, there were certain elements that I would use, this is all bass drums and gongs, and it's a storm. It has a form, but it's always improvised.
Yeah.
And then there were times when I was just I didn't even know. I would just go out there and start playing. And the more I did it, the more I could kind of go back and forth between having a bunch of index cards or a list of things that I could just, if I didn't know what to do next, I would maybe look at that to help me, go, oh yeah, okay, I'm going to play something, only my percussion table with metal, only that, or I'm going to play just ballophones, I'm going to play just mbira, or just now it's piano, I'm adding piano, and I'm adding a loop pedal sometimes, and so it's really more about limiting myself to certain text sound elements, or even tonalities.
Yeah.
And kind of, and then expanding on that, improvising on that idea. So I don't feel like I'm constricted too much, I can still improvise and create something in the moment.
Really, yeah.
So it's a balance. It's a balance between certain things that are structured, certain things that are impressions of a composition, and sometimes every once in a while is a specific composition that's the closest that I'll ever get to playing it exactly, but never quite exactly ever.
But did you also guys when you met with Medeski, when you formed Medeski, Martin and Wood, was this also kind of the idea in the beginning of you guys, or?
Not in the beginning. The beginning was sort of like we would write music together by improvising, but we would also bring in ideas of doing arrangements of things, like, oh, let's do an arrangement of Caravan, do Gellington, or let's do, Bob Marley, Vamsha Swing, Thelonious Monk, or let's mash that up, or do something, a Coltrane tune. And then other times it would just be, I would play a beat and they would start playing and we would record it. And then we would write a song instantly and then we would re-perform it, but always leave it open. And
how cool.
Then when we would tour and play in concert, we would always have those tunes. And then over time we would start to add more improvisations in the moment. It was a balance between
that's cool.
Going from things that we knew we're going to eventually play this tune, but we never played exactly the same.
Yeah.
And then we're going to expand here. We're going to we're not going to know what we're going to play here, And then as years and years and decades went by, there was periods where it was like we played a whole tour not playing one song ever.
That's a good concept also to keep. I just wanted to keep you. Before going into art question, just painting, I just wanted to ask you, how do you keep exactly such a long-standing unit fresh? That's I spoke, I don't know, and played with Paul McCandless, and he was with Oregon together for 50 years, and you guys been doing it now for 30 years, I guess, and how do you keep a fresh musical relationship going on? Is that one of the recipes, I guess?
Keeping it fresh is always having an element, always having it open to improvise, to listening to each other in the moment with no ideas ahead of time, and then to also have some things to fall back on if we want to, that we know we're going to want to do some specific things. If it's a performance on stage, then we might have a little set list and say, maybe we'll do these 5 tunes, everything else around it, we don't know what order, and then everything else is open to go wherever, as usual. Chris starts playing and Billy finds a beat, and then we take off from there, or whatever. Someone may start something. And it's different every time, and keeping it fresh is to keep it different every time. It's never like Chris always starts or I always start.
That's good.
Sometimes might just be, we'll go out there and we'll say there's a certain mood we want to start with. We agree on a mood, we agree on instrumentation, and it's always changing so that we're never stuck on returning to the same old way of doing things. Otherwise, we would not be happy. And
that's
when we're in the studio, we're like this last record that we made that's not out. I don't know when it's coming out, and it's a movie also that the documentary. We went in there with no ideas. Everything was written in 5 days and recorded, and we have 8 hours of music. But we'll probably have a good hour of music. And also the film adds another element, where we improvised, outside in the woods and solo things we did in different parts of the house and the property. And all of that is just was really improvised. It's really, the whole thing was improvised.
Oh, looking forward to hear that, or where you guys took it.
Yeah. But, I'm going to show some of that footage on this thing I'm doing, this live sessions we're doing every week.
Yeah.
I'll show you that.
Yeah, please. I just wanted to ask you, like, regarding your set lists, do you guys still, I mean, because you've done so much music and written also, like, do you still can select like one old tune like Dracula or Bubble House and say, let's play that? Or
yeah, that's easy. That's easy. We know that, it's like riding a bicycle. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well,
those tunes, we don't have to think hard at all. We don't forget those.
It's there still.
There are some that we haven't played in such a long time that we may have to refresh our minds and listen to it.
Yeah.
But certain tunes are like the classic ones. I don't think we ever have to rehearse or anything.
Yeah. But Billy, I just wanted to ask you, like I said in the beginning, I was quite surprised about your visual art, and I just wanted to ask you. I didn't know that, to be honest, and it's quite impressive what you've done as a visual artist. And I just wanted to ask you, when did this start for you? I mean,
it started for me when I was very young. I mean, it started with my father giving me magic markers and crayons to make Christmas cards. My brothers and I all sat around and we did like Christmas trees and whatever, images of reindeer or whatever it might be. And then that started when I was very young. That started the whole like love of drawing. And like most children, it's a magical, beautiful thing to create some images on paper. So I always held on to that. And I went through different stages in my life where I didn't know why I was doing it, but I was just like escaping and drawing things. And there were some things that had to do with science and marine biology that I was very much into, very much into nautical maps and
I saw that.
charts and like, biological, looking in a microscope with my father. Those things influenced me. Filmmaking. And then I think it was really, I would say, when I met Bob Moses and he was like, making his own record covers, I made the connection, because I was still drawing, in high school, and I met him right after high school. Well, couple of years after high school, but in high school I was getting into like Van Gogh and like and Klee and Miro and Picasso, like that kind of art. Like and then of course the graffiti art and all those things that were happening around me in New York was like a big influence on me, graphic art. And then when I met Bob Moses, it was like there was the first musician that I met that made his own album covers. And then that just was like clicked with me. It was like, oh my God, like you can be a musician and a visual artist.
Yeah, it's not separated.
And we spent a lot of time together and we would draw together.
Really?
Sit around and draw together in the studio. Listening
That's
back
amazing.
to our tracks, and he would be drawing, making postcards and sending them to people, and he would send me stuff by mail, like his original art, like
You still have some of that stuff of his? Or?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah. And then with John Laurie, the same thing. John Laurie and I would just like draw together, and of course he turned me on to Jean-Michel Basquiat, who was his roommate.
Yeah.
And Jean-Michel had a big impact on me in the 80s. And so, of course, I wanted to do anything. I wanted to copy him every way I could. And that was like, John was a big influence on me. And also him and Jean-Michel definitely had a similar kind of style, some of it.
Yeah.
And then from that point on, I was, when Desk Martin Wood was, they didn't have any ideas for images, and I had a lot of them. So that's the first record was one of my paintings, Notes and
That's how it started. Yeah. Oh wow, that's amazing. Huh? That's such a cool story. Yeah, I didn't know that. Like, and you still keep going this, right? I mean, it's an ongoing process.
Very, very important part of who I am is
Who you are.
artist. Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. Huh?
Yeah.
Super.
Dr. Jazz.